You guys have been asking, and I finally have some good answers for you. Let's talk about the best e-reading devices for 2025. There's been a handful of brands and dozens of devices that have come out in the last year, but I've tested and narrowed it down to 3 that I think are actually worth your money, specifically if you're looking for an e-reading device that is also compatible with Reader. First up, we have the Daylight DC1. This is a new device that came onto the market last summer, and it's unlike any e-reading device I've ever used. This device is ultra responsive and lightning fast, and I don't think you have to be someone who geeks out over resolution and refresh rates and all those other tech specs to feel how much better this device is coming from a Kindle. I've noticed that the DC1 has been excluded from a lot of the e-reading device roundups, probably because it's not a true e-ink display. E-ink, also called e-paper, is the technology you would find in a Kindle or most other e-reading devices. It uses actual microcapsules of ink that get rearranged on the screen as you move from page to page. The main advantage of e-ink is that it really does look like paper. It's almost entirely non-reflective, meaning it's great for reading in bright light or at a weird angle. It is much gentler on your eyes compared to a typical phone screen, and it uses way less battery power than most other digital devices. The major weakness of e-ink devices is that they often have a slow refresh rate compared to your phone. This means you'll often find a small lag between when you touch the screen and the screen actually responding, which can be kind of frustrating if you're trying to select and highlight text. You'll also encounter more of what we call ghosting on e-ink devices, which is where you can see a faint outline of previous pages or highlights when navigating in between pages. The DC1, on the other hand, is using what the company is calling live paper technology. This is basically a reflective LCD screen without the backlight. Similar to an e-ink display, the DC1 is really gentle on your eyes. However, it is also just as responsive and has the super smooth scroll that you would expect with something more in line with an iPhone or an iPad. The Daylight DC1 is 1.2 pounds, making it the heaviest device in this roundup. It has 128 gigabytes of storage and a 10.5-inch black and white display with an adjustable warmth slider. It has a 60 frames per second refresh rate, which is super fast. For point of reference, the maximum refresh rate for the other 2 e-reading devices I'll be covering in this video are 20 and 30 frames per second. So the Daylight DC1 is about twice as fast. At the time of this recording, it is selling for $729 US, which definitely makes it the most expensive device in today's video. Where the Daylight DC1 really shined for me is its overall speed and display quality. Whereas with standard e-ink devices, there's often a slight lag between touching the screen and the screen actually responding. The DC1 feels just as fast and intuitive as an iPhone or an iPad. I also didn't run into any issues with ghosting while switching between pages, which I did run into with the other 2 e-ink devices in this roundup. Of all the e-reading devices I've tested, I would say the Daylight DC1 is the best reading experience right out of the box without needing any further configurations. Because the DC1 is so responsive, it was also incredibly easy for me to type out notes, which if you've ever tried to take notes on a Kindle, you know this isn't always easy. If I could make one custom configuration suggestion for the Daylight DC1, I would really encourage you to install the Gboard app, which will allow you to insert the split keyboard that makes it really easy to type with 2 hands, especially on a large screen like this. The Gboard app also supports voice-to-text dictation, which I found to be incredibly accurate. Super fast performance and stunning resolution aside, my favorite thing about the DC1 was actually the size. In addition to working at Readwise, I am also in university right now trying to finish off a degree I never finished 8 years ago, which means I am reading and writing about dozens of PDFs every single week. Because I'm doing all these academic citations of both page and paragraph number, it's really imperative to me that I read these PDFs in their original form, which unfortunately is a really hard form to read on a tiny little phone screen. The Daylight computer has been amazing because I can finally comfortably read these PDFs on the train or at night before bed without having to pull out my computer. Because the DC1 screen resolution is so high, it was also really easy for me to zoom in on PDFs and accurately highlight tightly formatted text. The DC1 also had the warmest display quality of all the e-readers I tested, which made it especially nice for reading at night without getting super wired from the screen. The Daylight computer also ships with its own digital stylus and a built-in journaling app, which is a great option if you're someone who likes to take freehand notes in a digital format. One of the biggest drawbacks of the Daylight DC1 I've seen talked about online is that the screen is slightly more reflective than a true e-ink device. I personally didn't have any issues with this since I was mostly using my DC1 to read at night in bed, but if you are specifically looking for an e-reader for reading outside, on the beach, or in the park, you might be happier with one of the other true e-ink devices I'll go over next. Another downside of the DC1 for some people might be the weight and the size. This device is 1.2 pounds, which is quite chunky for an e-reading device. For point of reference, the other two devices that I'm reviewing in this video are 6 and 6.8 ounces, so this is more than twice as heavy. And if you are someone who likes to read with one hand, you can definitely do it, but I think your wrist might get a little tired. And again, the reason it's so heavy is because of the size. To me, the overall size is worth it, particularly if you have a PDF reading use case like I shared with you earlier. But if your eyesight is quite good and most of your reading is online articles and ebooks, this size might be a little bit overkill for you. The DC1 also has the shortest battery life of the 3 e-readers I'm covering in this video. I got about 3 days of use out of a full battery charge with the DC1, whereas a true ink device can last anywhere from 1 to 2 weeks between charges, depending on your usage. Next up, we have the Books Go Color 7, which is a true e-ink device. Unlike other e-ink devices though, which typically only allow you to read in black and white, the Go Color 7 supports reading, as you might have guessed it from the name, in full color. It also has these page-turning buttons on the front that are very reminiscent of the beloved Kindle Oasis that is no longer in production. I've seen the Go Color 7 most often compared to the Kobo Libra Color, the Kindle Colorsoft, and the Pocketbook InkPad. However, those other 3 devices don't support Android, which means you can't install Reader on them. With the Go Color 7, you can. Getting into the nitty-gritty, the Go Color 7 comes in at 6.9 ounces, so this device is about half the weight of the Daylight DC1. It has 64 gigabytes of storage, which is the least of all the devices I'm reviewing in this video, but that really shouldn't be a problem unless you're installing a lot of different apps on this device. Additionally, if you do find yourself running out of storage, you can always expand its storage space with a micro SD card. It has a 7-inch full-color display with an adjustable warmth slider, and it has several adjustable refresh rate settings ranging from 5 to 20 frames per second, depending on the quality you're looking for. And lastly, the Go Color 7 Generation 2 is currently retailing for $270 US. The most obvious advantage of the Go Color 7 is its full color display. This is especially great if you read a lot of comic books or documents with color-dependent charts and illustrations, or if you're just someone who likes to see your highlights in color. My second favorite thing about the Go Color 7 is its overall size and weight. This device fits really naturally into your hand, it's lightweight, so your wrist isn't going to get tired, and in my opinion, it's really this kind of Goldilocks size. I can pretty easily fit it into a tote or a handbag and take it wherever with me, but the screen is also wide enough that I can open up those original view PDFs that I mentioned previously and still have quite a comfortable highlighting experience. I just have to zoom in a little bit more. Similar to the Daylight DC1, the size of the Go Color 7 also made for a really easy typing experience, especially after I installed Gboard and was able to take advantage of their split keyboard and voice-to-text dictation. The Go Color 7's page scrolling buttons also make for a really easy one-handed reading experience. And unlike most other e-ink devices, the Go Color 7 supports switching screen orientations, which is especially useful if you happen to be left-handed and you want to take advantage of these buttons. Of all 3 devices I'm reviewing in this video, the Go Color 7 is also the closest in width to a standard paperback. So if you're looking for an e-ink device after years of reading paper books, the Go Color 7 is probably going to feel like the most natural transition for you. In terms of drawbacks, I did initially run into some really heavy ghosting with the Go Color 7, especially when reading documents with darker backgrounds. This wasn't a total deal breaker for me, and I was ultimately able to overcome a lot of this ghosting by fiddling with the device's refresh rates. I'll share the optimal settings I ended up landing on for my Go Color 7 in a separate video in case you also end up buying this device. While the Go Color 7 is way faster and more flexible than the Kindle I bought back in 2021, it is not nearly as fast or high resolution as the Daylight DC1. Text also looks slightly less crisp on the Go Color 7 compared to the Daylight DC1, and even though the Go Color 7 supports viewing videos in full color, the slower refresh rate on this device means that the videos often end up looking a little choppy and lower resolution. If you're just looking to highlight video transcripts in Reader, I don't think this is a deal breaker, but if you're looking for a high-def video viewing experience, the Go Color 7 isn't the right device for you. Lastly, we have the Books Palma, which was probably the most talked about e-ink device last year. To be completely honest with you guys, I actually didn't use my Palma for the first 6 months I had it because I found it so frustratingly slow. It was my first Android-based e-ink device, and I just felt really overwhelmed by the different refresh rates and custom configurations, so much so that I decided just to shelve it and go back to reading on my iPhone and my Kindle. But when I started seeing all of my colleagues and other people online raving about the Palma, I decided to give it another shot. And I will say, once I got all of my settings dialed in, which I'll teach you guys how to do in a separate video, I ended up loving this device just like everyone else. The Books Palma is 6 ounces, making it the lightest of all the devices in this roundup. And just like the Daylight DC1, it has 128 gigabytes of storage. It has a 6.13-inch black and white display with an adjustable warmth slider and multiple refresh rate options ranging from 10 to 30 frames per second. Lastly, the newest Palma is currently selling for $279 US, which puts it around the same price point as the Books Go Color 7. I found that the Palma was slightly better than the Go Color 7 in terms of touchscreen responsiveness and less ghosting overall. Of course, you have to trade this off with the fact that the Palma only supports reading in black and white, and it's too small to comfortably read PDFs in their original form. The advantage of the Palma's small size is that this thing is super easy to hold in one hand and bring with you as you travel. You can also map the volume buttons on the right-hand side of the device for a really smooth one-handed reading experience. I personally found that because the screen of the Palma is so small and I was turning pages more frequently, this led to this innate feeling of momentum and flow as I read, and I often ended up reading for far longer periods of time on the Palma compared to any other e-reading device. The Palma also has this insanely long battery life that lasted me well over a week on a single charge when I was just using it for reading. The main advantage of the Palma, its size, can also be its main disadvantage based on what type of reading you're doing. So if you are someone who is reading mostly web articles, RSS feeds, ebooks, any sort of HTML-based content that reflows really nicely to a small screen, I think you're going to enjoy reading on the Palma. However, if you are someone who mostly reads PDFs and you have to read those PDFs in their original form, I think you're going to find reading those sorts of documents on this small of a screen very uncomfortable, even if you have the best eyesight in the world. The other downside for some users is that because the Palma only supports consuming content in black and white, it's probably not the best device to be doing things like looking at comic books or watching videos if color is a really important part of that video experience. Additionally, because of its size, I did find that taking notes on the Palma was a little bit harder than on the Daylight or the Go Color 7 since it didn't support a split keyboard. With that said, the Palma is pretty much the exact same size as any smartphone, so if you already do a lot of texting, you probably won't find the Palma's tiny keyboard that much of a deal breaker. So those are my thoughts on the Daylight DC1, the Go Color 7, and the Palma, which I think are the best e-reading devices for 2025. I think all 3 of these devices are going to hold up well for years to come, and they share a lot of important core similarities. They all support the installation of Android apps, including Kindle. They all have more default storage than you probably need, including the option to expand it even further using a micro SD card. They all support USB-C charging, so you don't have to worry about keeping around a special charger. They all support connecting to wireless headphones or speakers using Bluetooth, and they all support voice-to-text annotations. Where these devices differ is in size, speed, and display quality, and the best one for you really does depend on the type of content you're consuming most. The Daylight DC1 is a great choice if you're someone who is frequently annoyed by the slowness of standard e-ink devices, consumes a lot of PDFs or videos, or you just want the best display quality out there that's still gentle on your eyes. The Go Color 7 is the perfect size if you read a little bit of everything, care a lot about reading your documents in color, and are willing to sacrifice a bit of speed and resolution for overall flexibility. And the Palma is the perfect one-handed e-reader that blends speed with portability. You probably won't enjoy reading PDFs or watching videos on it, but that may not be your use case anyways. Let me know in the comments which device you end up buying, or if you have any questions on any of the 3 I covered in this video. There's another e-ink device on the horizon called the Minimal Phone, so be sure to subscribe to this channel for my thoughts on that when it drops, along with other digital reading tips and tricks. Thanks so much for watching, and happy device buying!